Good afternoon. This is Kurt Lieblong. The presentation today is on cost savings initiatives. I'm the state value engineer and I work out of the production support office in central office. So objectives for today's presentation, I'm going to give you some background on the CSI program. Also talk about some changes that were significant that were made in 2011, 2012. Couple years back, but they were significant to bring up. I'm going to talk about a CSI workshop and also a concept meeting. We'll go over what the submittal requirements are for CSIs and how the review process works. Then I'll talk a little bit about design build CSIs, and I'll show you at the end some case studies. So with that, let's get started. So in early 1990s, FDOT established what we called the Value Engineering Change Proposal Program, also known as VECPs. And that program was a program to allow contractors to submit proposals and for us as a department to evaluate those proposals and see if we like the proposals. If we approve them, then we would split the savings with the contractor. So that went on from early 1990s until about 2010, and in 2011, 2012, we made some major changes to the program. The results of the CSI program are reported quarterly to the executive board and annually to Federal Highway. And then since 1994, when we had some data available, we have approved 506 proposals, and those proposals have resulted in about $116 million in construction cost savings. So I wanted to show you, although the CSI program, it's not mandated that we have CSIs on projects by federal regulation, but I just did want to show you that it is mentioned in the federal regulation for value engineering. And so it basically says that we'll establish policies and procedures and contract provisions that can handle a value engineering change proposal, or as we call it now, a CSI proposal. And it should highlight how to identify, how to analyze, review them, what's the process for accepting, and when you do accept it, you know, how is the savings going to be shared between the agency and the contractor? So what is a value engineering change proposal? Well, it's a cost reduction proposal that a contractor initiates and develops for the purpose of refining the contract. The proposal must result in savings, and that's key, must result in savings without degrading safety, operations, maintenance, aesthetics, and essential functions. So it's initiated and developed by the contractor and presented to the department. Just show you some results we had with the program from 1995 to 2011. You can see that going back to about, actually this stops in 2010, but you can see there's been a downward trend, or there was a downward trend. And that was concerning all the way to the point that it got down to a low point of 9 submittals statewide that were approved in 2009, 2010. So this was a concern, and we are also getting complaints from industry, the contracting industry, on the VECP proposal. What happened is there was a meeting with FDOT senior management, FTBA, contractors, and consultant industry to talk about the program in general. And one of the early complaints was that they had an idea, they had a proposal, they present it to their contacts, which is construction personnel. Construction would say, yeah, I like that proposal. Go ahead and develop it and submit it. So we're given conceptual approval. And then by the time it got into and it did a full department review, we ended up rejecting it. Well, the problem was, you know, in some of these proposals, they were having to go out, hire an engineering company to provide the proper documentation. And then so they were on the hook for the engineering fees, and we were rejecting it after we had initially told them, yeah, we like the idea. They also felt the districts were not open to changes, that no matter what the proposal is, they felt that the district wasn't going to approve it. And then, as I mentioned before, they were paying for engineering costs, and many times the proposal was getting rejected after we had given them conceptual approval. So what were the changes? Well, in 2011, 2012, we did, as I mentioned, we did make changes to the program. The obvious and primary change we did say was we changed the name. We changed it from VECP to Value Engineering Change Proposal to Cost Savings Initiative Program. And then we did some other things. So we incorporated what we call a CSI workshop, which we made mandatory. And this workshop happens after award, but prior to contract time beginning. And the idea of it is to get everybody talking, communicating, find out if the contractor has ideas that they're considering for a CSI, and then have that discussion up front and early with all the appropriate people, not just construction, but the EOR, the designers, people in the department from a design side that would be reviewing it, or any other office that it would affect the project in their discipline. We also always had what we called in our procedure for VCPs a recommended concept meeting, which means, this is after contract time starts. The contractor comes to construction and says, hey, I got this idea. We always recommended that they have a concept meeting to discuss the idea, similar to like discussing any ideas they have prior to contract time starting. But if they came up with an idea, that we would initiate a concept meeting and discuss it before telling them to go ahead and develop it. And we said that was going to be mandatory. Then we also came up with, we will pay for up to 25% of total savings for documented engineering costs. That's not the cost for contractor personnel to put the package together or anything like that. It's if the contractor has to go out and hire an engineering firm to develop something, that cost that they have to pay to have that happen, we would pay up to 25% of the total CSI savings. And then we also included the CSI specification in design build projects. And I'll talk about design build separately further along in the presentation. So comparing the program results, and we made those changes in 9-10, you can see that we had a pretty dramatic increase in the number of proposals that were being approved. In subsequent years after 14-15, we had a dip, but then it came back up in 17-18. So what is a cost savings initiative? Well, it's a cost reduction proposal that the contractor initiates and develops for the purpose of refining the contract. The proposal must result in savings without degrading safety, operations, maintenance, aesthetics, and essential functions. And that should sound familiar to you because that's the same definition of what a VECP was. As I mentioned, we basically changed the name from Value Engineering Change Proposal to Cost Savings Initiative. The concept is the same. So what's not a CSI? Well, correction of plan errors. Those are not CSIs. We're looking for ideas to refine a contract, to come up with some savings that still meets the functions of the project without degrading anything that's essential to it. We also say in the specification that the contractor should identify the proposal as a CSI. And they will do this. They'll do it up front. Unless it's a design build, they will do it up front because they need to do it to be able to get the savings. So the CSI workshop, as I mentioned, is mandatory. It's prior to beginning of contract time, after award. And the purpose is to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of the proposals. That's the reason you bring everybody together, is to talk about what are the pluses and minuses of the proposal, so the department can get an idea on whether they really want to consider it. And coming out of these workshops, if we tell them, yeah, we consider this, we should have a pretty good idea. It may take a little bit different format. We may have to negotiate some changes to it, but we should pretty much be in agreement that, yeah, we like the idea. It may not be to a refined level we want at this time, but we can work through those and make adjustments. And then also, you need to discuss what the submittal schedule would be like and the review schedule. So, it's not fair to submit, a CSI on a Wednesday and expect an answer back Thursday, when you have to have several people in the department review the proposal. There is an option to delay the construction start date for the, if it comes up in the CSI workshop, because the start date hasn't happened yet. They could technically, there's an option for the department to do that if they really like it and the contractor needs time. And it also, we say mandatory at the top, but we've also said it can be eliminated if agreed to by the department and contractor, and we have to document that it was agreed to by the department and the contractor. And I'll show you a way that we do that. It's scheduled by the construction PM. And many times it can be combined with the pre-con meeting. There's a standing item at the pre-con meeting that says, that to discuss CSIs. And many times they can get what we're looking for in a CSI workshop. They can talk through at that time. So as I mentioned, there are ways to document. This is one way to document eliminating a CSI workshop, or it's a way for the contractor to document that they requested one. So you'll notice there's a standard letter that's sent out by some of the districts. Some of the districts use this. There's a standard letter. There's a form with it. And as I highlighted, there's 2 boxes there. One says, we do not have a cost savings proposal at this time. Please waive the required workshop minute. And the other one says, we have or are considering CSI proposal. Please schedule the workshop. And then the contractor signs it and department representatives sign it. So that documents why we eliminated it. And that will leave some issues or claim issues if it ever becomes an issue down the road. Participants in the CSI workshop, construction PM, contractor, obviously the design project manager should be invited, the EOR, engineer record. We suggest inviting the district VE because they will coordinate the CSI in the design portion, and also any functional offices that need to be invited, typically design, maintenance, materials, traffic ops, whoever's going to be affected by the CSI. On oversight projects, FHWA needs to be invited. And on category 2 bridge projects, the state structures office needs to be invited. Concept meetings, again, mandatory. Now, concept meetings after contract time starts, possibly the contractor has an idea. He comes up with an idea after the project's already started. Obviously, that's after the CSI workshop. He comes up maybe with a new idea. So we recommend that the concept meeting happen. So it takes place at that workshop. And you would discuss any CSI proposal. Obviously, this typically, he's got an idea. You would probably discuss that particular idea. Again, advantages, disadvantages of the proposal with all the appropriate players involved. And the submittal and the review schedule should be discussed. There's an option for time extensions to develop the idea. And again, once again, it can be eliminated if agreed to by the department and contractor. That also should be documented. Should be the same attendees as the CSI workshop. As I went through before, those people that attended that workshop, they should also be the ones, if another idea comes up, they attend the concept meeting. And again, it's scheduled by the construction PM. So the submittal process. Well, typically a contractor floats an idea to FDOT Construction. He's working with the people he works with out in the field. Construction would provide some feedback to the contractor. This is the early screening portion of it. Now, this isn't, yeah, we like that idea, go ahead and accept it, because that's where we were getting in trouble or having some issues. This is, if we really know at this point that we aren't going to accept an idea like this, then we could cut it off at this point. Or it could be some feedback. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Construction may want to see some modifications, but then we should go ahead and schedule the concept meeting so that design has their say, the EOR has their say, and maintenance and anybody else would be involved. Once the concept meetings happens and we tell the contractor, yeah, we like that idea, yeah, go ahead and develop it, then the contractor would move forward and formally submit the CSI package. Submittal requirements. Now these are per specification 4-3.9 in the spec book. You need a description. You need separate detailed cost estimates based on what was originally, designed and what the CSI proposal is. Revised plans, any kind of engineering analysis that may be affected. Date decision is needed by the contractor to be able to move forward with the proposal. A revised project schedule, if necessary. A description. You need a clear description of what the changes to the original design are. We don't need to be trying to compare apples and oranges. We need to be clear on what was proposed in the original design and what the CSI is proposing. Separate cost estimates for the existing, what they bid on, and then what they're proposing should be broken down by however type of contract it is. If it's pay items, you need to break it down by pay item, and it needs to show where the increases are, decreases, and deletions. Any plan sheets that need to be revised should be included. Any new design standards that may come into effect because of the proposal should be sufficient to describe what the proposed changes are. Any engineering analysis, and how that affects the changes affect other elements of the project. And the engineering analysis must be done by a pre-qualified consultant in that type of work. So we're not saying, somebody pre-qualified in traffic ops and that's what they're pre-qualified in is doing structural work. It needs to be whatever the change is, that consultant must be pre-qualified in that type of work. Need to submit computations, drawings that are signed and sealed by the contractor's engineer. The schedule, like I said, a date, the decision is needed. So it's not reasonable to submit something on, like I mentioned before, on a Wednesday and expect an answer by the end of the week or the next day. There's a lot of people that get involved in reviewing and they need to have time to be able to review. So we need to date the decision is needed. We also need, if there's any revised project schedule, because that could determine if we accept or reject. It could determine if we consider it. The review process, FDOT would construction copies the district value engineer when they get a submittal in. They determine if the contractor date can be met first. So they talk it over. If it's a reasonable date, then they'll move forward. If not, then need to go back to the contractor and say, well, we can't really meet that review date. And construction and DVE will identify who the reviewers need to be. They distribute the CSI submittal to the reviewers. And the review process, construction reviews the proposal for contract requirements, constructability, the price proposal. Is the price reasonable for what they're going to do? The DVE will coordinate department review as far as concerns with design, traffic ops, maintenance, and it will definitely include the engineer of record. Category 2 bridges are sent to the state structures office. And as I mentioned earlier, if it's an oversight project, then it needs to be sent to Federal Highway. Comments and recommendations are compiled from the reviewers. If necessary, if you have conflicting comments, it may be necessary to schedule a comment resolution meeting with the appropriate players. Then a recommendation is sent to district management for their approval or rejection. Typically, all the compilation goes to the district construction engineer, and they make a recommendation up to the director of operations whether to accept or reject the proposal. Some of the districts use the electronic review comment system for review. It's a comment response database that can easily be used for this process. Others, some of them use email for review. But if you are using email, you need to make sure that you compile all those emails, that you can easily get back to them. And the district VE must be copied on the email responses because he's trying to coordinate the review on the design side. There is a flow chart for the review process posted on the Production Support Office website, and the link to that is below. So moving further along with the review process. So once a decision is made, obviously we need to notify the contractor, and construction will handle that. An approved CSI is eligible for documented engineering costs, can save up to 25% of the total savings. And if approved, then you begin the supplemental agreement process and split the savings of the 50-50 net reduction. So as an example, here's an example of a savings calculation. So the construction cost savings of CSI was $100,000. That's if we went ahead with the CSI, we'd have a savings of $100,000. So the documented engineering cost can be up to 25%, which is $25,000. So the net reduction would be $75,000, and then the 50-50 reduction, 50% of the net reduction would be $37,500. We would split that $75,000. For category 2 bridges, there are conditions of acceptance in specification 4-3.9.6, and they are an independent engineering peer review funded by the contractor. So when the CSI for the category 2 bridge, whether it's, whatever it is, if it's foundation work, if it's substructure work, superstructure work, it must be reviewed by an independent peer that's not involved in the CSI design. And they must be pre-qualified under 14-75 for that type of work. And the contractor will designate the primary engineer responsible for the CSI design. These conditions of acceptance are similar to how design build works for category 2 bridges. So it pretty much mirrors that process. So review questions. Can a CSI be processed to correct plan errors? And the answer to that is no. Does the department pay for CSI development costs? Only documented engineering costs. So as I mentioned before, we're not paying for the contractor's personnel or employees to put a package together. We're only paying for documented engineering costs where they had to go hire an engineering firm to perform some work. Up to how much does the department pay for documented engineering costs? 25% of the total savings. So it won't go above. It doesn't necessarily have to be all the way to 25%, but I'm pretty sure most of them will come back at 25%. So design build. Talk about this right now. So up until 2012, the department did not include the VECP spec or the CSI spec in the design build RFP. We took that spec out and it didn't apply. The expectation was that design build firms would include benefits of VE or cost savings ideas into their design and their technical proposals. And by and large, that's still the expectation of the department, that the design build firms will design and they'll take advantage of cost savings ideas to put the best proposal together. But historically, the department had always received very detailed technical proposals from design build firms vying for the design build projects. And the department has been listening in the past several years, and this is debated a lot, but they have been listening about how much the cost was to put those proposals together. If you have a very detailed technical proposal, then it costs quite a bit, and there's less, there's not as much opportunity for some innovative ideas to it. So this idea of a book of promises, which is basically what the technical proposal is, came about, and why the department considers that a book of promises is because really that's what the design build firm, the technical proposal, is what they're saying is, this is what we're going to build. This is what we're going to provide the department based on this RFP. And this is what they intend to build. And that's also what they're being evaluated on. So they win the award based on their technical proposal and their price too, but they get a big chunk of that is based on their technical proposal. This is saying what they're going to do, and they get awarded the contract based on that. So what's a CSI on a design build? Well, it's any change from that technical proposal that the design build firm subsequently won the award. So changes to the CSI, to the technical proposal, will be handled as a CSI. They are allowed to use information from other design build firms' proposals, and if they do that, that will be considered a CSI. We will not accept a rejected alternative technical concept, or an ATC, will not be considered as a CSI if it's been rejected. We don't pay for engineering costs prior to the release for construction. And parties responsible for initiating a CSI, well, it's still a design build firm, but the department plays a larger role in identifying it. So typically on design bid build projects, the contractor brings forward the CSI idea based on the contract plans that the department gave him. But on a design build, they're being selected on technical proposals, which later lead to the development of the contract plans by the design build firm. So the identification of the CSI gets shifted more towards the department. It's more of a responsibility of the department to say, wait a minute, that's different from our technical proposal, which you won the award based on. That should be a CSI, and we'll split the savings. So during reviews of plans, during that process when they're submitted, if there are changes to the technical proposal, then the reviewers need to be able to identify that they are. And if the design build firm is not identifying the changes, then it requires much more in the FDOT representative during that submittal process to submit comments based on, wait, this is different from the technical proposal, it should be a CSI. And then that comment, a response should be required for that comment. Reviewers in the CSI review, they must be knowledgeable. So they must be knowledgeable of the RFP, all the ATCs, any of the question and answer. They must be knowledgeable of the technical proposal. So in order for the department representative, if they're reviewing plans to determine if the CSI exists, they must be knowledgeable of all those areas. And the reviewer is going to differ depending on what the subject matter of the submittal. So whether it's drainage, structures, construction, whatever it may be, roadway, the reviewer could be different. They're going to review the plans based on their discipline area. So just to reinforce and reiterate, the responsibility of the CSI still rests with the design build firm, and we expect them to come forward with it. But if they don't, then the department representatives must have the ability to identify the CSIs when there are changes to the technical proposal. And there has been, as I mentioned, there's been significant amount of debate and discussions at many levels, and that's pretty much an ongoing thing as we refine this process and refine it. Once the CSI has been identified, the design build firm and the department representatives would negotiate the cost savings based on information shown in the technical proposal and the information shown in the proposed plans. Once the savings are negotiated and determined, then contract documents will be modified according to the design build division 1 specs for CSIs to reflect the cost reduction, and that's the SA process. So some review questions. On a design build project, does the department pay for engineering costs prior to the release for construction? No, we don't. It's only for if a CSI is proposed after the release for construction plans are out, we will pay at that time, but not prior. Can a contractor submit an approved ATC from a non-winning design build firm for a CSI? Yes, they can. And that has been done, and I have an example on one of the case studies of one that was done. So we will not accept any rejected ATC, but if there's an ATC from a non-winning firm that the winning firm would like to implement, we will consider implementation, but it's a CSI. We'll split the savings with them. Is a change from a technical proposal considered a CSI? Yes. Design build contracts, if it is a change from a technical proposal, that is considered a CSI. So some case studies. We've got 3 of them here. First one was on State Road 50. Is a widening in Orange County. It was a 4-lane to 6-lane widening. There are 2 new bridges involved. 12-foot lanes, 8-foot bike lanes. The original contract was about $15 million. So the CSI proposed to shorten bridges by about 285 feet. And in the process, they eliminated bents and piles. They had a total savings of $1.2 million. The design fees were $308,000, and the net savings came out to be $927,000, which was split at $463,000 each. Here's a before picture of the project. It's Lake Lotta down in Orange County. And you can see this was mostly causeway through that lake. And there was a box culvert right in the middle to connect the flow of the lake. Well, one thing the district wanted to do is open up the flow more. So they had proposed, this was the original design, significant there. You can see the orange color was the bridges. And they're almost the length of the lake in this. This is the original plans. And here's a after picture of what was constructed. And you can see it's not quite, the bridges still maintain the function of what they wanted to do is reconnect the flow of the lake, but they just didn't connect it. The bridges are a little shorter than what they originally did, but they still maintained the function and they were satisfied. So I-75 managed lanes. This is in Broward County. It was segment C. It was a design build project, and the original proposal was 22-foot high sound walls on the west side of I-75. There's 8,700 feet of proposed sound wall. The original contract was $85 million. And the CSI proposed 20-foot high concrete panels. But what it did was, because these panels were installed on a 2-foot high berm, it still maintained the 22-foot effective wall height. And actually, this is segment C. In segment D and segment B, they constructed it this way. So it made sense for the segment in between to be constructed the same way. The CSI was submitted prior to release of construction, so there were no engineering costs. We did not pay for the engineering costs. The total savings was split 50-50 and ended up being $405,000. The State Road 23 in Duval County. This is a reconstruction of State Road 23. It was 2 to 4 lane widening. It also was a design build project. The original contract was $84.85 million. The CSI proposed to realign State Road 23 at Oakleaf Plantation Parkway. And so it was able to shorten some bridges there. And it was also able to use an existing bridge that went over a waterway called South Prong Double Branch. And so they were able to reutilize that bridge. The proposal was an approved ATC during bid. So it came from a non-winning firm, and the winning firm decided to use it. And so we used it as a CSI. The 50-50 split was about $403,000. And I just wanted, the last couple slides here, I just wanted to show you some nationwide results in both, this spans the VECP program and the CSI program. And as you can see in that 20 years of data, we're at third in the number of approved proposals, not far behind California, who's in second. But you'll see on this next slide, we're way above in the number of the amount of dollars approved, almost double, more than double the second place state. So the program over the years has been a successful program, and we look forward to having more success within the program. And with that, we'll end it with questions. I've got my contact information there. If you have any questions after the presentation, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you.